Hello and welcome back to the Coffee Buzz. This is that small space in your day, a few minutes to slow down, breathe, and sit with a verse from the Tao Te Ching. No program to follow and no productivity hacks, just some space to think. So pour yourself some coffee and find a chair. Lao Tzu, 5th or 6th century BC, depending on who you ask, he was a librarian, keeper of records for the Zhou dynasty. And at some point, he looked at the whole human experience, the ambition, the striving, the constant noise of civilization, and decided to write it down in the form of 80 short verses, which is all about the thing underneath all of it. He called it the Tao Te Ching, or the Tao, the way. Not a God exactly, not a law, not a system that you can master or a technique that you can apply. Something older than all that. So today, we're going to read verse 4. The Tao is an empty vessel. It is used, but never filled. O unfathomable source of the 10,000 things. Blunt the sharpness. Untangle the knots. Soften the glare. Merge with the dust. O hidden deep but ever present. I don't know from whence it comes. It is the forefather of the gods. And there it is. That's the verse. It's a short one this week. It starts with an empty vessel, used but never filled. I've been sitting with that line since before the sun came up. Got up early, made coffee, sat in the quiet before the day started, and I kept turning it over. Most of us are afraid to be empty. Empty feels like poverty, like failure, like the universe took one look at you and decided not to show up. We are a culture of filling. We fill calendars. We fill our houses with the things we had to rent storage units to overflow into. We fill our heads with noise, with content, with the steady pharmaceutical drip of other people's opinions about things that don't concern us. And silence, stillness, the empty moment before something begins, we treat that like a problem to be solved. I've noticed it in myself, that low-grade anxiety that kicks in when there's nothing scheduled, nothing demanding attention, and nothing to react to. Like the emptiness is the verdict. Like if you sit down still long enough, the universe is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, yeah, we've been meaning to talk to you about this. But what Lao Tzu is doing here, and it's so simple, it almost slips past you, is pointing out that emptiness is not absence. Empty is capacity. Think about the things that are most useful to you. A cup, a room, lungs, a good conversation. What makes them useful? What makes them work? It's not what they contain. It's the space inside them, the hollow, the room to receive. A cup that's already full can't hold your coffee. A room that's already packed can't hold another person. A mind that's already certain can't hold new ideas. And the Tao, the deepest principle in the universe, the source of all the 10,000 things, works the same way. It gives, and it's never depleted. Not because it's inexhaustibly large, but because it doesn't hold on, because it moves, because it's empty in the way a river is empty, always full of water, never the same water twice. There's a musician I read about once, classical pianist, one of the greats, who was asked what separated a good performance from a transcendent one. He said, "The notes are the same for everyone. What makes the difference is the silence between them, the rest, the pauses, the space. The music doesn't live in the notes. It lives in the relationship between the notes. And that relationship is made of empty space. The Tao is the silence between the notes." Now the verse gets specific in part 2. And when Lao Tzu gets specific, it's worth slowing down because every word is doing work. He gives us 4 instructions. Blunt the sharpness, untangle the knots, soften the glare, merge with the dust. Let's take them one at a time. Blunt the sharpness. We celebrate the sharp mind, sharp wit. We reward the person in the room who has the quickest answer, the cutting remark, the perfectly aimed needle that deflates someone else's argument. We call it intelligence, confidence. We admire the edge. But what I want you to think about, what sharp actually does to the world. Sharp cuts things out. Sharp divides things. Sharp things slice through something that might have held together if you just ease up a little. You've met people who were so sharp they couldn't have a conversation without drawing blood, who turned every interaction into a kind of competition, who mistook the ability to win an argument for the ability to connect with another human being. And here's the thing about those people, and I include past versions of myself in this category, so nobody take it personally. They're often lonely in a way that has nothing to do with anyone else. They're lonely for themselves because you can't be sharp and soft at the same time. You can't cut and receive at the same time. The same edge that keeps the world at a distance is the one that keeps you from being touched. Blunting the sharpness isn't about becoming dull. It's about becoming safe. Safe to be around. Safe to be. It's the difference between a blade and a river stone. The river stone has been tumbled smooth by all that water, all that time, all that contact with the world. And there's something in the smoothness that invites your hand. You want to pick it up. You want to keep it. Now let's talk about untangling the knots. Now we're starting to get somewhere. You know the knots I mean, that you've been carrying some of them so long you've forgotten they were there. They've become part of the landscape, part of the way you hold yourself. It's the resentment you're still nursing from a conversation 5 years ago that the person has completely forgotten. The story that you tell yourself, and maybe you never say it out loud, about why things went the way they did, about who failed you, about what you deserved that you didn't get, about the versions of your life that should have happened. The knot of pride makes them impossible to ask for help. The knot of fear dressed up as caution, and the knot of old grief that never got a proper burial. We keep them because they feel like something to hold on to, because in a strange way, the knot is familiar. It's ours. It's been there longer than some of our friendships. But here's what the knot does, energetically speaking. The knot ties up. It's in a place where something should flow. Thought, feeling, attention, love. It all gets snagged. It gets stuck and stops moving. Over time, you stop noticing the places where you've stopped moving. The Tao doesn't yank the knots loose. That's important. Yanking makes them tighter. The Tao is patient. It works the way you work on a real tangle, little by little, finding the give, easing rather than forcing, which is maybe a lesson about how to approach the knotted places in yourself and in the people around you. Soften the glare. There's a particular type of person, and again, this is not entirely theoretical, who walks into a room radiating certainty. I know how this works. I have figured it out. Here's my assessment of the situation, my diagnosis of the problem, my prescription for the solution. And it comes at you like a lamp shining directly in your eyes. People squint. They look away. Not because the person is wrong necessarily. Sometimes they're completely right. But there's something about that directed, focused, unwavering beam of pure conviction that makes it hard to see anything else in the room. Hard to think your own thoughts. That glare crowds out the light. Soften it, diffuse it, and suddenly the whole room is illuminated. Other people's light can exist alongside yours. Other perspectives can survive in the same space. And here's the irony. The softer the light, usually the more you can see it. Merge with the dust. This is the one that gets me. Think about the natural world for a second. Really think about it. Land stretching out in every direction. Trees, rivers, animals living entire lives you never know about. Mountains that were old before humans even existed. All of it, every last atom of it, is made of the same stuff. The bear, the river stone, us, we're all variations of the same theme. Stardust that got organized into different shapes for a while before returning to the general pool. Most spiritual systems, if you look at them closely, spend a lot of energy creating hierarchy. The divine is up here. The material world is down there. The sacred is separate from the profane. the holy is distinct from the common. But Lao Tzu is saying something different. He's saying the Tao doesn't float above the material world on some elevated spiritual platform looking down. It merges with the dust. It gets in the dirt. It's intimate with the ordinary. That's not degrading. That's the deepest kind of belonging I can imagine. To not be above anything, to be of the same substance as everything. The verse ends with what might be, for my money, the most honest and beautiful admission in the whole Tao Te Ching. I do not know from whence it comes. It is the forefather of the gods. Lao Tzu, one of the wisest people who ever committed thought to language, and he looks at the deepest principle he spent his whole life trying to describe, the very ground of being, the source beneath the source, and he says, I don't know where it comes from. Not as a failure, not as a limitation he's apologizing for. It's a homecoming. Because the willingness to not know, the genuine, unself-conscious willingness to stand in front of a mystery and say, I don't understand this, that is itself a kind of wisdom, maybe the deepest kind. We live in a culture that's allergic to not knowing. Uncertainty is treated like a disease. We medicate it with information, with opinion, with the steady comfort of other people's confident explanations. There's an entire media ecosystem built on the premise that someone, somewhere, has the definitive take. And if you consume enough content, you can be one of the people who knows. But the truth, the real truth, not the bumper sticker version, is that we are swimming in mystery on all sides. The fact that anything exists at all, the fact that the laws of physics are calibrated so precisely for complexity to arise, it's something physicists call suspicious. The fact that you are conscious right now, sitting in a chair, hearing these words, making meaning out of vibrations in thin air, the fact that music works at all, or beauty works, that love walks right past your defenses and hits you somewhere you didn't know was open, none of that has a real explanation. And the Tao, the source underneath all of it, older than any story we've ever told about where things come from, predates the gods themselves. It predates the very categories that we use to think about origin and meaning and why. That should be humbling, and it is, but it also should be, and this is what I want to leave you with, freeing. Because if the source of all the 10,000 things is an empty vessel, if the deepest truth is spacious rather than rigid, open rather than sealed, humble rather than certain, then maybe you don't have to have it all figured out either. Maybe the not knowing isn't a gap in your understanding that you need to fill before you are allowed to show up. Maybe it's the whole invitation. So here's what I'm sitting with this Saturday morning, and I'll leave it with you. Where in your life are you too full? Too full of your own righteousness, too full of your own plans, your own frameworks, and your story about how everything works and why everything happened the way it did and what it all means. What would it feel like to set some of that down? Not permanently, not as a project, not as another self-improvement initiative to add to the list, just for today, just long enough to be empty enough to actually receive something. Thank you for spending a few quiet minutes here. This has been the Coffee Buzz Podcast. Blunt your sharpness, untangle your knots, soften your glare, merge with the dust. And until next time, don't be so full that you can't be used.